Okay, nope. Toilet solutions. Is that a rule now? Do we have to make a rule?
I'll sign off on that rule. No toilet solutions.
Okay, I have so many though. That
You're ripping out pages of your book,
huge
and just
number of
shredding
solutions.
them in
Well, wait,
frustration.
bathroom is different than toilet, so I can still do bathroom.
That's
ones.
true.
Okay, we'll do bathroom solutions still. Maybe not toilet ones.
Like rubby-dub bathtub solutions.
Oh
or
yeah.
just-
What about the upward shower? Why do we have water always come
because
down?
of gravity. Wait, I
Well,
think this is
but
a trick question.
We live in a world where it's possible to, mechanically
It's
do
possible to
things.
enter a centrifuge
So
and
why
then
not have
shower
water-
while you're spinning.
Yeah, or have water blast. Well, they do sometimes have sideways, but I want it to come up. Is it because our heads are oily? Is that
Those
why?
are fountains. You
Yeah,
can
yeah.
just go
Well, I want a
take a
fountain
bath
shower.
in a fountain in like
Solution from the
the city.
multiverse. I went into a universe.
bathe
All
in a
the
fountain.
showers were blasted up from the bottom.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Oh, sprinkler shower universe
Sprinkler shower.
where they only ever developed in the summer, like running through sprinklers, and they were
That's
like,
right.
"This,
Really, we need to
this
do
is how
this
we
more.
clean ourselves."
Exactly. This is we need to do this because it's joyful. It's
Now,
joyful.
what if you went into that universe and you introduced to them the concept
Downward
of
shower?
top-down showers, and they're like, ooh, they make you their king. They're
They're
like,
like, oh,
they're like, look at this crazy invention.
They look at their water pressure systems, which are like huge because they're having to blast all the water
Yeah.
up. And they're like, we didn't have to build any of this. We could have used gravity the whole time.
Then it starts raining, and they look up and they go, "Oh,
See, we joke. But
oh,
that-
it's just like rain.
like rain.
We should have built it like raining."
So you joke, but that's how our world is like, right? Like,
What? What do you mean?
I mean, all the stupid crap that we do,
Yeah.
it's like so obvious that we shouldn't be doing it,
Well,
but we still do it.
it's
you know?
not obvious until someone swoops in and shows you something,
Right,
and then everyone
right,
goes,
right.
"Oh."
Oh, right.
And then they all
right,
start doing the new thing.
right. Or they just don't start doing the new thing. All right, I have a solution.
You have a solution?
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's
I
kind of a
have a reception of a solution.
Oh, okay.
So let's meet them up.
Meet them in the middle. Build bridges. So, have you heard about Argentina?
I have heard about Argentina.
What do you know about Argentina?
They
Those
are in the
gauchos.
World Cup
The
when the
gauchos.
World Cup happens, and
Yes.
their fans wear light sky powder blue.
The flag.
I feel
color.
like maybe it's kind of the coolest of the colors.
Definitely.
With
the light yellow,
No,
too.
Netherlands fans wear bright orange, and
Yeah.
it sticks
That's the
out
king-
like
that's
their
the queen.
safety.
That's the king's color.
Yeah, but like
Mhm.
I like the Argentinian blue. That's what I know.
Beautiful. Like a powder blue. Like
Uh,
a periwinkle.
I know "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina,"
Okay.
and I know that's where the Nazis went to after
Oh,
Germany,
dark history chapter.
some-
Yep.
to escape. Right?
Yeah, I've heard of that too. Yeah.
All right, so that's what I know. Now
Okay.
we're at
Have
the end
you
of
heard
my
of the
Argentine-
recent news about Javier Miele getting elected president?
No.
Have you heard the recent
Javier
news in the
Miele.
last 20 years or so of
Uh-oh.
the horrible, crippling inflation problems they have?
In Argentina
Yes.
specifically? No, but I mean
Okay, they do.
overall.
They have horrible, crippling inflation.
Okay.
Like thousands of percent inflation all the time. Like a normal year is like tens of percent, hundreds of percent inflation.
What's
I know,
causing that?
I know,
What,
it's terrible.
Why is that?
I know it
that seems like
destroys their economy. It
Right.
just makes it so that even though they're they're a productive, educated people, but because of inflation, like their whole economy gets trashed.
What's bad in Spanish?
Malo,
So it would be more like malo Aries.
mulo malo eres.
Bueno, isn't Bueno Aries?
Buenos Aires. Yeah,
Isn't that
Buenos
good?
Aires. Malas Aires.
Good Aries? We got
Malas Aires.
changed to
Bad Aires.
bad Aries. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, Aries just means airs too. So good airs. Buenos Aires, good airs. Malas Aires, bad airs. No, I mean it's the people are lovely, the culture's lovely, everything's lovely, but
Of
the
course.
economy is just screwed up by all this inflation. So they recently elected, just like 2 months ago, they elected this.
Oh, I know
guy.
about this Miele guy.
Yeah, Miele. Yeah, Javier Miele.
I've-
You just heard.
I've been
about
in the
it. Yeah,
know.
You've been
What?
in the know.
No. don't
Okay,
accuse
so
me.
he's a younger guy, and he's he's an economist.
Air quotes.
Air quotes. He has worked as a professor of economics, but but the real deal is that he's like a rabid, self-avowed anarcho-libertarian, like
Okay.
rabid libertarian, like the most
Like the
libertarian you
U.S.
could
version of
possibly
libertarian?
Yes,
or is
like
that,
worse,
okay.
like as bad as the most libertarian person you've ever met.
Which shorthand for people, and probably libertarians will be
Yeah.
like, that's not what we think, but it's everyone should, for the most part, as much as you're able,
Eliminate-
everyone governs themselves and makes their own
and
rules
eliminate
stuff.
regulation, eliminate government as much as possible.
Okay.
And it's the opposite of like a state socialism. It's like removing the state as much as possible.
It's like a nation of individualisms.
Yeah. Sovereign individual is kind of the key word that some people like
sovereign
to say.
Citizen.
Sovereign individual.
I've seen YouTube videos where that goes poorly.
But oh no. Anyways, so Javier's done this, and he's claiming that he can fix the inflation. This was a big part of his platform, and part of it
elect me, and I will
fix the inflation.
It's not gonna. Your money's not gonna suddenly be worth 1/100th of what it was a week ago or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
And the way he's promised to do that is two things. One is reining in government spending by like cutting things from government because he's libertarian, right?
Sure.
And the other thing, which was a big promise for him, is what is called dollarization. Dollarization. And dollarization is where you literally abandon your country's currency.
Okay.
And you convert your entire economy to use US dollars.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a weird
Other places
thing.
have done this, right?
Yes.
They're like weird countries, like small places who
Ecuador did it recently.
Okay.
They are now in a civil war against drug cartels.
Cool.
Yeah. There's not really necessarily a direct correlation between the dollarization and the drug cartels, but there is some relationship. They're able to do business more easily because they have dollars. So
right. You have to change it into Ecuador.
But I mean, there's other problems with Ecuador. But anyway, so this is what Javier is trying to kind of promise. But now that he got
Ecuador
elected,
is, thinking about it, Ecuador is kind of the best place for a civil war, right?
Oh, best.
Because I mean, most of the place,
heap.
You have to figure north, south, and you're like, where's our line going to be? How do we separate north and south? Ecuador, the line is predefined.
Really? What is it? I don't know.
It's the equator. Ecuador is right on the equator. That's the whole thing. So
he's
like
from the wrong side of the railroad.
It's
tracks.
like literally north versus south hemisphere. I mean, it's a hemisphere fight. A hemisphere civil war.
Oh God,
that's the country you want to have a civil. I mean,
if there's any
for
country,
all our Ecuadorian listeners, I'm so sorry if I'm making light of your terrible circumstances, but
we wish you the best.
I'm just saying.
It's
already
you do have
preset.
Nice, you have a nice.
You have
for the
line.
Yeah,
the defining.
And when
line.
you have a peace treaty and the civil war ends, you know where the party's going to be.
Boom,
right on the line.
Right on the line.
Anyways, so he's come in and said, let's do dollarization.
Yeah.
And economists and commenters, a lot of commentators are like saying, this is like the Donald Trump of Argentina. He's this total outsider, wacko guy.
Okay.
And he's going all like, kind of moving around violently in the political space. Like he's and he's
not following the
and he's
normal...
saying we'll do dollarization, but then everyone's saying there literally aren't enough US dollars in the world to dollarize the Argentinian economy.
Oh, well, no problem.
Like
the U.S. government can just print a bunch more.
Well, that'll
not be a problem,
it can't
right?
do that either. Right?
Oh, wait, that causes our inflation.
I don't know what it would cause, but it wouldn't. You can't do it. You can't. You can't have like the Argentinian government call the Central Bank of America and be like, "Please print billions of dollars and just give them to us." No, that's just you can't give money for free, right? To get dollars to dollarize, you have to buy the dollars.
Yeah.
So you have to actually buy them from the marketplace,
right?
Which means they have to be there to buy. And if you don't have them, then the price will just go up, and you'll cause all these problems with basically it'll become too expensive.
Reverse inflation. It'll make the dollar
deflation.
Oh, right. That's
it won't affect it. None of this is going to affect Americans. This is all just international trade,
Argentina,
trade relations or whatever.
Okay,
and we all affect Argentina. Yeah, Argentina.
Argentina.
What's the country we're talking about? Argentina.
Yeah.
So anyways, the solution today is, as we've talked about before, as I'm an advocate for, Argentina could adopt Hayekian competitive currencies.
Hayekian?
The currency that I started.
That
the currency that I started. The same type of currency as I started.
But what is Hayekian?
Oh, from Hayek. Didn't I call them Hayekian? That's what they're called. That's what I call them.
You probably did. I forgot it.
I'm the first person to make them, so I get to call them whatever I want. But it's a tribute to the economist who invented it, which is F.A. Hayek, who's a Nobel Prize winning economist.
All right, so take me through this. How does this help them?
So Hayekian currencies are not just even like low inflation, the way like the dollar, the euro, the yen, which are like low inflation currencies. Right. Hayekian currencies are zero inflation currencies. They don't even experience inflation.
Okay.
So Argentina, what they could do is they could write regulations, like laws around how the government or taxation and blah, 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 of how these currencies would work. And then they could just release that and just invite Argentinian entrepreneurs to launch these new currencies. And then those currencies would launch. They'd start small.
Yeah.
But with excitement, especially if Javier told all his like Javi heads to like to like go out and flip all their
Right.
their pesos into these new Hayekian currencies.
Right.
I mean, he has a strong, he got enough base to get voted.
He has a big
he has a big group of people who are going to be like, great, let's go do that. And they'd all go sell their pesos, buy the new Hayekian currencies, and they would move the country. Yeah, and then they'd start to use that to do transactions. And he would legalize it so banks could accept bank accounts in Hayekian currencies, and the whole thing, because it would be led by the top, because the regulators would be pushing it. It would be super easy for the entrepreneurs to do it. Now it would be experimental, it's a new thing. But but in theory, it's a strong concept. It's a very strong concept made by a libertarian economist. F.A. Hayek is a famously libertarian. Libertarians love Hayek. They
love
him.
If you're experiencing massive swings of inflation all the time, then what are you risking? What are you risking?
You're already in the worst case scenario.
You're like, that could be risky. You're like, oh, okay, our current thing is pretty risky. So tell me something new.
Yeah. And you could do nice laws around it. Like, you could say, you have to have 100% reserve. Here's what 100% reserve means. Your reserves have to have these, you could put some, I mean, obviously he's libertarian. He probably wouldn't put a lot of regulations, but, a few key things to make it so that they were safe, like 100% reserve. I think that would be a good regulation, because otherwise entrepreneurs, capitalists being as, risk-taking as they are, they might do lower than 100% reserves. That's not good. That could lead to the same problem. You can get inflation. You can get weakening currencies because their reserve is not strong.
So the solution is to get the Argentinian Mark Cuban and the Argentinian Jeff Bezos
or whoever
to start using the same one or different ones, or
actually we want them to make new currencies.
Each person have their own sort of situation.
Whatever group, whatever people, if they had some insight, I'm going to make a currency that behaves this way. I'm going to make a currency that behaves this way.
But then the person can move and make it instead of like having to get a consensus of.
Well, right now nobody even knows this concept. Like, I googled around, like no one. This is in Solutions from the Multiverse. It's a totally new idea, but theoretically. It would, I mean, I don't see the downside of at least even trying. Maybe you don't want to back it with the full, like, crazy, like the president saying, go out and do this, but you could at least kick it off. You could be like, part of our solution is launching these Hayekian currencies that we're going to explore and experiment with.
Right. Here's an economic option to try to alleviate some of the stress on our crazy system.
Right, exactly. And it would be interesting. I mean, you'd still have to do the government has been spending too much money, printing too much money, the central bank prints money, buys the bonds of the government, and then the government defaults on the bonds.
Yep.
And then it causes this crisis. And then they can't print bonds anymore because no one will buy them except for domestically. You can only buy them domestically. Yeah. So maybe you could say in the regulations, like Hayekian currencies need to hold 1/3 of their reserve needs to be bonds, government bonds.
Just some sort of a guarantor.
Starts to create like a demand for the government bonds still.
Okay.
So then, but then there's still accountability, because the Hayekian currencies can be like, screw you. Like, we're not going to buy a dollar, like a peso over 30% unless these bonds are actually good. And so the government has to actually, I actually have to make good bonds. Like, I have to, keep my books balanced.
Well, and you want a currency, hopefully, to be you don't have it just to have it. You have it to use it, right?
Yeah.
It's the thing to make your economy and society function and make people able to do trade and commerce.
Yeah, totally. But you have to make it so that it's stable, so that there's no inflation, but it would be really interesting. It would turn Argentina from being like a backwater, like a financial backwater, into like basically the cutting edge country in the world of.
I was gonna say, it sounds like it would be like Wakanda, innovation. Where like everyone's got their own future tech and like
it'd be like that.
Oh, you can come over here with Scott Bucks and pay.
Exactly.
And pay. By the way, they're way better than Adam Bucks across the street. Adam Bucks sucks, so come over to Scott Bucks.
Yeah, try Scott Bucks. Well, they could do interesting. I mean, leave it to entrepreneurs to figure out how to differentiate. But Hayek recommends a couple ways to differentiate. One is actually different people have different cost functions and therefore different inflation. So like if you live in a rural area and you don't have any kids, you have a really different cost function than if you're like someone with kids in a city.
Wait, what's a cost function?
Like
then?
Your costs, what you buy is different.
Okay. So your cost, your monthly
Yeah, like
Cost
if you're in a
living,
rural
yeah.
area, you probably get cheap eggs because there's eggs everywhere from the chickens in the rural area.
You might even
but if
own
you're in
chickens.
a rural, yeah, but if you're in a
Or
city,
outside.
eggs are more expensive. So like,
Sure.
so you could actually build a currency that was inflation proof for rural people and a currency that was inflation proof for city people, and it would behave differently. They'd be different currencies.
Okay.
And so you could do that. You could be like, oh, I'm going to create that. Another person could say, I'm going to make a socially responsible currency. I'm going to make a currency that is the reserve has no, polluters.
Okay.
Okay. You could make like all kinds of, you could make
let's get down
currencies
to
where
it.
it's like 10% of the profit goes to charity. Oh, I want to use the social good currency this way or that way.
Okay.
You could do currencies where you give back profits in the form of, points or, it's like anything. You can just differentiate in all different ways.
So now if I'm traveling to Argentina for tourism, how many wallets do I have to bring with me? Because like if I'm going to go there
That's
as
a
a
good
person
point.
from another country,
Yeah.
what do I exchange my money
How do you do
for?
it now? You
Right
probably
now-
you just swipe your credit card when you get there.
Oh, that's a
and
good
it
point.
just all gets done
I was just going
behind
to
the
say
scene.
literally because the last time I was international traveling, I was like, well, you take your cash you take your traveler's checks up to the in the airport and you get them exchanged for cash in the currency that you're in, and you carry that around in a money belt and look at everyone sideways and hope that no one rolls you for your cash. But no,
Now
credit cards,
most
of course.
countries you can just swipe your credit card or debit card anywhere and it goes through. So that would be one way, but you could also, there would still be like the peso would probably still be a major currency.
Is that peso? Is Argentinian peso the same peso as Mexico
no, it's just the word.
It's just a word.
It just means peso means a weight.
Oh.
Pesado.
Okay.
Peso.
So if I have an
I
Argentinian
think it means
peso
that.
and I walk into Mexico and try to spend it, they're like, yo, you can't.
No, of course not. No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
It's like
that's what I was asking. I didn't know.
Singaporean dollars, American dollars.
All
They're
right.
both
Canadian
called
dollars,
Canadian
I guess.
dollars.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If I try and spend a toonie in one of the U.S. shops, they're like, nope.
He has a Singaporean dollar. Everyone's, what the fuck?
I'd be like, yeah.
Is this money blue? Why is this money blue? But yeah, they could even produce their own cashes. So like one currency could be like, we have cash. Another currency would be like, no, we're like a high.
Is that called a fiat currency when it's a cash? Or is that something different?
Fiat just in Latin means
I was trying to sound smart.
Fiat in Latin just means make it so. That's what it means. Make it so. And what it means is when a currency has its value comes from some power saying this is money.
How come he never said that on The Next Generation?
I know.
When he was like, all right, number one, fiat.
Fiat. So yeah, you should have said that. Make it so, number one. So fiat's a little bit confusing. It's actually kind of a confusing term because you could say the US dollar is a fiat currency because the US government says it's money. But it also is money for all these other reasons. Like it has a reserve. The Federal Reserve has, whatever, $500 trillion just sitting in its reserves.
Right.
So it has a reserve. Does that give it its value? So these Hayekian currencies.
Wait. The Federal Reserve, this can be completely sideways, but we went off the gold standard.
Yes. 1935. And then the gold window closed in 1971. I'm wearing the shirt.
I was just going to point out that you're talking
the
about the thing that you're wearing a shirt about.
I didn't realize. I wear this shirt all the time, but there's a great website.
I remember you because the first time you wear it, I was like, what is
anyone who wants to learn more about this WTF happened.
No, I said this was not in the podcast.
1971.
Cut out.
Don't cut it out.
Why?
What WTF?
Me talking about your shirt that no one could see?
WTF happened in 1971. That's when the gold window closed. But the website shows hundreds of graphs showing that basically every economic indicator got worse ever since then.
Yeah, it's a pretty convincing set of graphics. Yeah.
So bad news about Numi.
Oh.
Yeah.
What?
Our bank debanked us. They kicked us off.
Oh.
Yeah. It's bad.
What does that mean?
It means we're legal to operate. We technically can operate, but we literally are just shunted out from the banking system.
Okay. Numi, for anyone who hasn't listened to an older episode we did on Numi. Numi is the inflation-proof currency that Adam created.
Yeah, Hayekian currency.
Hayekian currency that we talked about, where if the inflation goes up periodically, eventually, essentially your money stays the same value, which means it's worth more over time of regular dollars.
Right. Relative to regular
Relative,
dollars.
yeah, exactly.
But it's just, it's inflation proof.
So losing a bank. Oh, no.
Yeah. So, I mean, startups, you move 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing.
Okay.
But we're not dead in the water because, like I said, it's not like the government told us we can't do it, and it's not it's not like it's illegal, and it's not like technically we can't do it. It's all everything's working actually better than ever. Everything's like the apps are looking great. Everything's like working and firing on all cylinders.
Right.
But the bank, there's this weird thing going on in the banking industry where basically they're getting like spooked. Like regulators are going around, I think largely because of crypto stuff.
Okay.
The regulators are going around like in rooms behind closed doors, and they're not talking necessarily to the crypto people. They're talking to like the banks, and like because the banks are like gatekeepers.
Right.
And so the regulators are like, well, we can't try to regulate all these psycho crypto people, but we already know the banks and we can regulate them.
Okay.
So they're going around saying like, hey, anything that's like weird, you better not be doing anything with that because like booga, 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 like scary, And so the banks are like very, very spooked. And so my bank was like, we're spooked because they're just some random business bank. They're not like a bank built to be like, no, we're taking those risks on purpose because we know there's going to be costs, but we want to take the risks in order to have. They're not like that. They're like, no, we're just doing like vanilla business banking.
Just looking at
in the Midwest,
XY numbers. Yeah, exactly.
They say borrow at 1%, lend at 3%, golf at 4%. So it's borrow at 1, lend at 3, golf at 4.
Golf at 4. What?
Just like at 4 o'clock. Cut out. You're done with your work at 4.
I was like, it sounds like you're saying you're going to go play golf.
This is easy banking.
I was trying to smart.
Borrow at 1, lend at 3, golf at 4. They're not trying to do like really. But then I've tried to contact some new banks and trying to get some banks that are more like really like, yeah, we're innovative. We want to do the more cutting edge things.
Right.
We want to assess you on your actual, your actual risk.
The actual product.
Yeah, not just like, oh, are you new or not new? It's like being new doesn't make you risky.
New?
Yeah.
No, this is new me. Sorry, that's completely different.
Have it backwards. But yeah, so it's a little bit of a set. I've been kind of grieving, like, it's so frustrating. And I believe that this is an important thing, especially because we did some math and we're trying to figure out the cost of inflation to the American households.
Yeah.
And our rough estimates, which this economist guy and I put together, and he's not like me. I'm like, yeah, give me the biggest number possible. But he's like an actual responsible economist. So I'm a responsible economist too. But he has no incentive to give a big number.
Yeah, baby, give me those big numbers.
He was like, this is a defensible way to argue it, and he made it all straightforward. And basically, we found that if you just look at savings, like current accounts, cash, and savings accounts, every year American households lose $53 billion to inflation.
Whoa.
Yeah, $53 billion. So that's like a fifth of about a tenth of the military budget.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Yeah.
Where does it go? You say lose.
It goes to rich people.
How?
Basically, it's thieved from poor people and given to rich people.
Okay.
Or it's thieved from debtor, like savers, and given to debtors, largely. So it's like a transfer of wealth.
If I keep $1,000 in my bank account, and I'm like, yes, I've got my fortune here, and now inflation makes that $1,000 more like 800. It operates more like 800 now. Yeah. Like essentially $1,000 buys now what 800 buys before. Right. So that's where the inflation.
Go? Yeah.
What happened? You're saying
that 200 went to like rich people who.
But
have
how
loans.
does that explain that to me? How did they?
Yeah, it's called the
profit.
It's called the Cantillon effect.
Because
it was discovered by Cantillon.
Because in my brain, I'm like, oh, if I have 1,000 and it's worth less.
Yeah.
And they have $1 billion, then that's worth way less.
Right.
They lost more than I did.
Yeah, but see, they probably have a lot of debt. And if they have debt, then they're paying back loans with interest rates. And the inflation actually makes their debt cheaper.
Okay.
Because inflation reduces your interest rate. If you think about it, right? Like if I owe you $10,000, but then inflation is 100% a year, you're going to get back $10,000, but that's going to be worth way less when you get it because of inflation.
Okay.
So inflation acts as a sort of cheapening of debt. So if like the government has the huge debt, right? Like the huge national debt.
Right.
Well, if inflation's like 20%, then that debt goes down by 20% because the actual value is reduced by 20%.
Okay.
So debtors, which are basically landlords, right? Like wealthy people like who have debt, they make money off inflation. The other way that people make money off inflation is just what's called the intertemporal difference between money now versus money later. Okay. I'll give you a concrete example.
Yeah.
A village of people, 1,000 people village goes to sleep one night, and the next morning everybody wakes up with $10,000 under their pillow.
Okay.
So immediately all prices rise proportionally, right? Like immediately a slice of loaf of bread would go from $5 to whatever, $8 or whatever it is, to account for the additional cash, because everybody woke up with $10,000 more dollars.
This is the argument against raising the minimum wage, as what I've heard as well.
Causes inflation.
It's like, oh, if you just bump up the bottom, it's going to
which is false.
That's
lies.
Yeah,
it's total lies.
Trying to sink a boat by putting more water in. It's like, no, it's just going to keep lifting.
But that's lies. It's not. The minimum wage takes profits from.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's the argument that I hear.
Anti-labor argument against it. Yeah, but imagine that same city, but now you wake up and you have $10,000 more dollars, or you have $100,000 under your pillow, and nobody else woke up with $10,000.
So now I'm living.
You get to buy a bunch more stuff, and your like funny money that you got goes away from you, and real goods come towards you.
Gotcha.
So there's this kind of So if every day the Federal Reserve prints money and gives it to the federal government, who gives it to federal contractors, the military-industrial complex, social welfare, and then they also give the money. The Federal Reserve gives the money to big, huge corporate banks.
Right.
They then give that money in the terms of loans and investments into wealthy, huge corporations. That's where the money basically goes. So those people are waking up every morning with $100,000 under their pillow, and the rest of us are waking up with no additional money, which means our money then gets worth less, and it's being thieved away from us.
Okay.
So it goes to the government and to large banks and to large corporations. Some of it comes back to like normal people, like if you take out a car loan or if you buy a house and your mortgage rate is probably lower, slightly because of that. So it kind of, it's like a trickle down. It's the definition of trickle down economics,
right? Sure.
And it doesn't work, because we know that trickle down economics doesn't work. And it's called the Cantillon effect. The Cantillon was this French guy, long time ago, I don't know, a couple hundred years ago, who figured this out. He had the same idea. What if someone wakes up and they have $100,000 under their pillow,
right,
and nobody else does? Well, clearly there will be a transfer of real goods to that person and money away from them. And money is not worth anything, right? Money is only worth
what you can
buy. Yeah. So actually, there's this transfer of real wealth in exchange for fake wealth. Like the money goes away from them. So I like
reminds
to think of it,
me of NFTs.
Yeah, it's like cryptocurrencies, which are scams. But yeah, so it's like a Roman fountain. You can think of it like a Roman fountain. A Roman fountain had like a spigot at the top, and then it would go into a basin at the top, and then it would go into another basin, and then it would go into a big basin.
I was thinking of one of those, like a wedding where you have like a pyramid thing of the glasses, and they pour champagne at the top
like
one.
That. It's like that. The reason why a Roman fountain is a good model is because
and not my stupid champagne wedding
is because everyone drinks the champagne, right? It doesn't matter if you get the top one or the bottom one. But in a Roman fountain, people drank from the top basin.
Oh.
People then washed their clothes in the second basin, and then animals drank from the bottom basin.
Well, that's
the other way around. Humans, animals, and then people wash their clothes, and it was like gray water at the bottom.
I was going to say, well, that's where you're wrong, because I do wash my clothes in the champagne at the bottom of the pyramid.
And you have your donkey drink the champagne at the middle?
Absolutely.
Then your analogy is perfect.
Thank you. I just wanted that acknowledgement. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
So anyways,
we can continue.
That's called the Cantillon effect. But it makes perfect sense. I mean, when you think about it, like, if one person, the central bank, is printing money, that's like the tip of the Roman fountain.
Yeah.
And then the water cascades into that first basin, which is like the government, military contractors.
But it's more and more diluted, polluted.
Yes.
The further down it goes.
You're losing value, and wealth is flowing up towards the central bank. And this is evinced as well in the central bank's own profit taking. The central bank, the Federal Reserve's profits last year, 2022 was $60-some billion.
It's good. It's good money.
The operating business, the operating expenses is only $4 billion to operate the entire Federal Reserve system. So their profits were
tiny
like,
profit.
what is that? Like
$61 billion.
16,000%. I mean, it's like, what the hell are you doing? That's 1,600%. It's 1,000. But no businesses have profit margins like this. If you said I have a business and our profit margins are 1,600%, like literally 16 times, you'd be like, what are you selling? Like, what could you possibly be selling?
The other funny thing is, like, the quarter after you get your 16,000% increase and you don't have another 16,000, your board is like, what? What did you do?
Pull the stock down.
This guy's lost it.
Fire the CEO.
I hit we hit a lightning thing. You can't just expect lightning strikes. That's crazy.
But yeah, so the Federal Reserve consistently, you might say, 2022 was some kind of special year. No, consistently they make like 1,000% profit. It's the most profitable business on the planet, both in gross terms and in net terms. Like,
yeah, those are pretty
no
gross.
business
pretty gross
gets
terms.
that big profit. And the reason why is because it's taking profits because it's that tip of the Roman fountain. It printed all the money. It's a monopolist. It gets all the interest of all the money in the whole world. Anyways, so if that profit would be shared equitably. I mean, to be clear, it does take its profit and just give it to the government. The Federal Reserve is kind of related to the government, even though it's an independent thing. It just gives it to the government.
Nice.
So that's not too bad. But the problem is what the effect that it has on the government's behavior, namely like bailouts. Right? You couldn't have bailouts unless you had a central bank that printed the money for the bailout.
Right.
You also couldn't have invasionary wars. Like Russia couldn't have invaded Ukraine unless its central bank printed the money to do it. It just wouldn't work. You can't have invasionary wars.
I didn't think that those things are connected like that. But yeah.
Yeah, imagine if you were like in America and it was like 2002 and people were like, let's invade Afghanistan. And then people were like, cool, taxes are going to go up by 15%. People would be like, let's think again about that invasion. Like, no one wants.
Actually, I think it's cool. Let's be cool.
Let's just do surgical strikes or something that are cheap. What's cheaper? Give
me that price list.
Yeah.
What are we dealing with?
Let's see the menu. Like, we can just go get Osama bin Laden with a helicopter, instead of invading an entire country that for 10 years. And so basically invasionary war is not really possible to do unless you have defensive wars are possible because it's like they're invading.
Have like a
should we raise taxes to fight off the invaders? Yes, people say yes. Raise the taxes to fight the invaders.
What we're essentially talking about is a bottomless, empty checkbook.
Just
like
a blank check.
Because you're like, I can write you however much money I need to write you because I can make however much money I need to make because I'm the one who does all the things.
Because I'm waking up tomorrow with that under my pillow.
Right.
Whereas you're a working person. You just take the effects of it.
So back to Argentina.
So Argentina.
We just need
they hit that checkbook too much. They wrote too big of a blank check.
I've moved you back. Were you done talking about the Numi thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. I was like, this frees up Numi,
Numi
to become the official currency of Argentina.
I'd rather.
We just got to talk to King Argentina and Queen Argentina
about this.
If
they contacted me, I mean, I've been trying to reach out to them. They have
to Argentina, the country.
The country.
I just they have one email address.
Just the Twitter.
Argentina@gmail.com.
I've been sending lots of emails. They don't respond. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I was thinking that, this Javier guy might take my call because he's a libertarian.
Why not?
I'm a professor. I have this. I'm the first ever Hayekian, as far as I know, currency in existence.
Take it.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll see. But
what's this guy's name again?
Javier Miele. Miele.
We should know his name before we take a call with him, right?
Yeah, I don't.
Should we call him right here on the pod? Adam, I have a surprise for you. I've got Javier Miele's phone number, and we're going to call him right now.
Miele. Sorry, Miele.
Oh my
Javier Gerardo Miele. Miele. Sorry, everyone. Sorry, Argentinians.
Sorry, Javier.
Mispronouncing your name.
We're soon to be best friends.
I have respect for someone who's trying to do something. But
of course.
But I would love it if there was more conversation around Hayekian currencies as a solution.
Well, especially if their specific economic, like our economy, thankfully right now isn't doing that wild inflation swing so quickly. I mean, it's just a quick. I mean, it's a steep.
Yeah, we had sort of a
constant pressure, but like. If that's causing so much anxiety and like turmoil in Argentina, then like attack that first, right? Like look for a way to insulate your economy from inflation,
right?
And the crazy inflation effects that happen to your actual society.
It has another effect too, which is like right now the way people are thinking is, the answer is, so, the economy needs investment to operate and to grow. Okay. So to grow, but the government won't, the bonds, the open market won't buy Argentinian government bonds anymore. Okay. So they're screwed. So the only one who will buy their bonds is the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which is like an intergovernmental.
Oh, I thought that was the thing that Tom Cruise worked for.
Scientology?
No, that when he's solving his impossible missions.
He was working for the IMF, right? So the IMF is this like government economic growth organization, and they'll buy junky bonds.
Okay.
But they'll come in and say, but there's strings attached. You have to do these policy changes, which are usually open up your borders for like free trade and like just getting raped by like international capitalism. That's like what it
seems bad.
It's bad. The IMF is bad.
Okay.
It's bad. I mean, it's not unequivocally bad, because sometimes the international corporations raping it is better than like the warlords, like the domestic warlords rape it. Like, like they won't actually rape you, but the domestic warlords will rape your daughters, so it's
cool.
Like, so sometimes it's better, but it's certainly not ideal. It'd be better if somehow the nation on its own could kind of build its own domestic economy up,
Yes.
Yeah. So Hayekian currencies would allow that, because the Hayekian currencies could buy the bonds, and the domestic, you could say 50% of your back assets need to be Argentinian assets. Then the domestic currencies would now become the investment vehicles for the country to develop at the same time as eliminating inflation, which would cause economic activity and growth. And so it'd be this very fascinating.
I assume that all works. You have lost me. Like, no, not in a bad way. I'm just like, I'm like, okay, I believe you. I don't have any basis of fact checking any of this, but that sounds good.
No, this is all I think experimental but plausible. That's the idea. I would say this is theory. Like, I talk to economists, I have 2-3 friends who are economists. We talk about this, and they all agree this is plausible theoretically, but no one's ever tried it. So we should try it. Some country, or some even just a city somewhere, should just try this, and we'll see. Because it either will work, which would be like Shangri-La, like it'd be really awesome,
right?
Or it wouldn't work, and then it wouldn't be any worse than getting 100% inflation.
Exactly. I was going to say that's the place to try it, because you got nothing to lose, right? What are you gonna? You can't break anything that's already broken. That's not true. You can definitely break stuff that's already broken. But the analogy. I mean, that's the place to try it.
Oh, I didn't say the other costs of inflation. We can wrap up. So that was just the $53 billion was just savings accounts, current accounts, and cash.
All right.
Okay. But every year people have income, right? So your income, anyone's income, if you have a job, is like a salary that's written down in a contract.
Sure.
Say you make 100, just for easy of numbers, say you make $100,000 a year.
Or X amount per hour, or whatever.
Yeah, or
you have a written remuneration
but
rate.
Just to simplify the math, though, let's say you make $100,000 a year. If there's 5% inflation, or let's say there's 5% inflation, then your $100,000 salary next year is only going to buy you $95,000 worth of stuff,
right?
Unless you fight for a raise that is at least as much as inflation. Okay, so if you look at wages, that money's being stolen from you as well. That's like a kind of the same, like a Cantillon effect, where your wage is being thieved, not just your credit balance or your balance on your checking account or your balance in your savings account. It's being thieved from your actual income. Okay.
And that's where you see those graphs where it's like the cost of things going up and the cost of wages staying
is flat.
Plateau.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you do the math, it's $1 trillion a year stolen. That's $1,000 billion a year stolen every year from people's wages by inflation.
Yo, just let me have one of those billions. You got 1,000 billion? Just give me one.
I know.
I'll be okay with it. I promise. If somebody gives me $1 billion, I'm not going to bug you with anything else.
You're not going to bug anyone?
I'll leave you alone. $1 billion? I'll go away.
I'll probably give you less than that. You leave me alone.
I mean, are we negotiating?
I don't want you to leave me alone, Scott. I like your messages. I like your
All right, fine. Give me the $1 billion. I'll keep talking to you.
Keep talking to me. Even when you have $1 billion. Actually, when you have $1 billion, let's go on boat rides.
Boat? Oh, you hate cars, but you like boats.
Oh, I love boats. Boats, sailboats.
What about those
Yachts.
those boats that are like cars? They come out of the water and they like take people on tours. Have you seen those?
Causes a crisis for me because I don't like cars, but I do like boats.
As soon as it goes in the water, you're like, yay, and
They're
it comes
a
out
boat
of the
car.
water. You're like,
Boo!
no, I was tricked.
Get back in the car.
You made me like a car.
So I've taken rides on those because they're in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Dells.
Yeah.
They have the rides.
Okay.
Oh yeah, they're
fun,
They're
right?
called the duck boats.
Duck boats,
Yeah,
right.
they're from World War something.
They
II
seem cool.
Something. Yeah, they're cool. Yeah. Anyways,
Side
we're just talking about how to solve all the economy's problems. But yeah, so if we had no inflation in our country, like if banks would actually work with the NUMI, which would be nice,
right.
and we could actually launch and grow, people could say to their employer, hey, that's great. I actually don't want to join a union because I feel like that's like all this work and I don't want to do that. I mean, I'm pro-union, but a lot of people aren't pro-union. That's cool.
Right.
But you still don't want inflation to destroy your income. You could just be like, hey, boss, I won't join the union, but like I want my salary to be written out in the contract in NUMI or in some other Hayekian inflation-proof currency. So on the contract, it says, 200,000 NUMI.
Right.
Now,
next year, when inflation has gone up,
you have not taken a pay cut.
Yeah, I'm still being paid the same.
So currencies like the NUMI could save American households $1,053 billion a year in loss. and yet the banks consider it risky. I don't know why.
And steal that money away from fat cats who don't deserve it.
Yeah, take it away. And it would go into these currencies, but the currencies keep it as 100% reserve and invested and could even, I think, do a lot of good with it.
Okay.
So yeah.
So non-inflation currencies as a way to maybe fix Argentina and keep other places from going on that same trajectory and dealing with those same problems.
Could be. I'll say at this point, I'm throwing a lot of like big numbers around. My point is that's like the absolute biggest possible. That's like, oh my God, the whole economy was inflation proofed, right? There would be other things that would happen, and we could talk more about that. We won't do it now, but there's a lot of things that could happen. It would change a lot of things, but it would eliminate inflation, which I think is cool. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Argentina could do, and it'd be nice even if that wasn't the solution. There's no reason to not let it
mix it in.
Just try it out and see. Let it kind of grow in a paced way. Don't let it get out of control. Maybe say, hey, we're going to check in when you hit $1 billion, $100 million in circulation. We're going to check in.
Yeah.
What are the effects? What's going on? And if it gets weird or crazy or it started hurting people, shut it down.
Well, and you're right.
Who cares,
a strongly libertarian government. I mean, I have my own qualms with that ideology, but one of the strengths is they're like new stuff. Let's try it out. Let's see let's throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah. Anyways, if someone's hearing this and you're like, this is totally wrong, I love that. We need to start more of a conversation around this because it's a new idea. There isn't a lot of conversation around it going on. So let's talk about it.
And you're the person to talk to if someone wants to start a Hayekian currency.
I would love to talk to you.
Because you've done it. You know the ins and outs. You can advise.
Well, it's easy if a bank will work with you, actually. So
if
a bank will work with you, it's pretty straightforward. But if they won't, then it's trouble. So
you got to start wearing suits.
We might
and
find
bowler hats.
I know. I don't dress
carrying around like umbrellas and stuff.
I don't dress for the role.
You need little circular glasses.
Yes.
Right?
Little square rectangular glasses.
Well, that's the opposite.
And like a mustache, like a little mustache.
Dude, you definitely need a little mustache. A little Walt Disney situation. No soul patch.
Okay,
no soul patch. No. If you get a soul patch, then you've traded in your bank and now you have a bass guitar.
I think we'll find a bank, but I think we'll find a bank in like 3 years when all this regulatory stuff starts cooling off again, kind of chilling. And they're kind of reopened to like innovation.
I mean, it seems like everything to go in waves.
Yeah.
Like things go.
Or I'll find a really wealthy person. I mean, I think if a really wealthy person or like a wealthy investment company was like, oh, we're going to put, $5 million behind this, then it would be like easy because you just tell the bank, you think we're risky? Well, what if we just put $5 million in a checking account in the bank? They'll be like, oh, well, do whatever you want then. Because now they have this huge, they get $5 million that they can go lend out and make tons of money.
So you're talking about a wealthy individual that is like, first thing we're going to do is subsidize this one podcast. And second thing we're going to do is $5 million.
Yeah. Or whatever, just millions of dollars. If you had millions of dollars, like I don't have millions of dollars, so I can't do this. But if I had millions of dollars, I already told the bank, they were like, well, we can't work with you anymore. I was like, what if I just put like $1 million in a bank account with you? And that stopped them cold. And they like stopped and like did the math in their head. And they were like, and they didn't say, oh, we'd still shut you down. They said, well, then that would come under consideration. Like that.
The
So it
equivalent,
really
the
just
equivalent
needs-
of the briefcase
Yeah,
full of cash.
yeah,
and you
they just need
set,
to,
open
and
up.
it's not a bribe. It's just a reserve. It's just money that's in their bank now. And they can lend out. If a bank has $1 million in a bank account,
Yeah.
it can lend out $5 million, which means it could make 5 times whatever the interest rate is money. So
Oh.
it can make a lot of money if you give
They
them
only have to hold 20%.
20% reserves.
Oh.
Yeah. This is why the NUMI is like less risky than a bank.
Right.
Except for we don't have.
Well, that's how runs
don't
on the
have
bank
FDIC
happen when
insurance.
everybody wants their own.
Yeah, if you do a run on a
Money at
bank,
once
the
or
bank's
whatever.
screwed, and you
Yeah.
need the FDIC insurance. With 100% reserve currency, when there's a run on the currency,
It's already
you just
there.
give them back their money.
Yeah.
It's all there, So it's not as risky. But there is no FDIC insurance, so it's that's why we built FDIC insurance, is to make regular banks less risky.
Make it work.
One of the big things that made me think about the Hayekian currencies for Argentina was not only Argentina, but that this week we had the Bitcoin ETFs allowed to be created by the SEC.
What's an ETF? I'm behind
That's
on this.
okay. Yeah. ETF is an exchange traded fund.
Okay.
And what it means is you take like a basket of assets that each have their own price.
Yeah.
And then from that, you take like 10% of one, 20% of the other, 50% of the other, and then you add it up together and it creates a new price for the synthetic. It's basically a basket.
Okay.
It's like a basket.
Okay.
And so they have ETFs for other things. Like you can have 100%. So you can have an ETF for gold.
Okay.
And the ETF price might be 50 or 100 or something, but it goes up exactly with the price of gold and it goes down exactly with the price of gold. So instead of buying gold, you would just buy the ETF for gold.
Oh.
So they made an ETF for Bitcoin. They made like 10 of them.
Okay.
And the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, which allows new assets like this to be created, allowed Bitcoin ETFs to be created.
Okay.
I am completely against this. I think
Why?
because these zero backing, Bitcoin has zero reserve.
Right.
Okay, and it has zero it has no real value. It doesn't, like, if you buy a right, then they're building buildings and doing real estate. If you buy a stock, then they're doing whatever that, if you buy Apple stock,
Right.
that money goes into Apple. Apple builds phones and things, right? Like
Bitcoin
Bitcoin just does nothing.
Well, it's
nothing.
the mining and the scarcity slowly.
Yeah, but it doesn't create
I
any
can't do it.
welfare for anybody. There's
Sure.
no
Okay.
welfare. It's just bits and bytes, whatever. And actually, it ruins the climate because it's, Bitcoin uses more electricity than New Zealand.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Why are we wasting this electricity? Anyways, so I'm totally against that, and I instead would rather see these Hayekian currencies beating the pants off of cryptocurrencies. But we're at the very beginning of Hayekian currencies.
So is that what spawned this whole
that's
idea?
what triggered me, like, we should talk, and the Argentina stuff, but there's been things happening in
The
sort
Bitcoin
of the currency
ETF.
world. Yeah. I think that crypto should have never been allowed, non-accredited investors should have never been allowed to trade cryptos. It should have been only accredited investors.
Yeah.
And then it would have been like, well, who cares? Those doofuses can lose their money. Who cares?
Well, and it felt like it pumped up huge right when they got a lot of popular people to throw in some dumb money,
yeah.
and then the bottom fell right out of it.
Yeah, and they all
It's
become
like,
bag. The
oops.
poor people are all bag holders, and the
Yep.
rich people all leave.
They're
ahead
like,
of
see ya,
time.
thanks.
Yeah, they just steal money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all for no good, right? It's not like, and we build bridges with it. No, it's like literally just direct.
It helps climate change. And
Yeah, it
sucks
just
the
builds
energy out
climate
of
change, and
the power grid.
and it just redistributes wealth regressively to the wealthy.
Yeah, but
That's all
it's
it
solving
does.
equations slower and slower, more and more slowly.
If only we could solve
Till it can find
the
the
most
right,
boring math
correct
problem
answer.
ever. Okay.
I like it.
Let's
Financial
maybe we can
solutions for the
experiment
future.
Solutions, yeah. Maybe help Argentina. Maybe try something new in the United States. Yeah,
I just want some really cool clothing in that sky blue.
let's get you it.
I mean, that would be. Oh, I could camouflage myself into the sky on clear days. I'd just stand there and people wouldn't know if it's me or the sky.
Stand on top of buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect plan. I'll be a reverse Batman during the
Reverse
daytime.
Batman. You could be Birdman.
I swoop down and start crimes.
This really is reverse Batman.
Yeah.
Your parents were saved from a burning building and survived.
I hired a person to assassinate my parents in the alley, and he botched it. And the parents got him. They karate chopped him right in the face. All right. Stay tuned next time for
Thanks,
more
everybody.
Batman. Same Bat time, same Bat channel. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Solutions for the
See you
Multiverse.
bat here later.
See you Bat here. Oh,
No,
very nice.
I'm batting 1,000.
next week.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.